right, 7 o'clock. We're going to do Far Journeys, Robert Monroe's chapter 16, and the epilogue discussion tonight. For anyone who didn't join 2 days ago, we were going to do it then, but we had so many people on that we never made it to the book. So if anybody's wondering why we never made it to the book, that's what happened. We just got stuck on discussion after discussion. So I pushed it off till today. All right, I'm going to go around here and do a round of introductions. I'll start with myself here just to show you how it works. I'm Juice out of New York. Working on the Gateway program right now, going through that, having a good old time. I've started it in the past, and this time I'm determined to finish it. And I'm more than halfway through it. So that's where I'm at right now, enjoying the Gateway ride. And I will move it on to David. David, what's up? What's new?
Oh, guess what, Juice? I had a dry spell the last couple of weeks since that first, and then I remember something from the book. I'm trying to remember if they covered it in either two of the books, but I do believe they did something called motion techniques. It's similar to what Monica spoke about, not the last meeting, the meeting before, because it wasn't at the last meeting. It's to imagine a moving device like a rope or a ladder or something like that. And as you're drifting into sleep, to visualize yourself doing that. And I did that thing where I slipped from awake.
Hey, David, I'm just going to stop you real quick. Do you have a TV on by any chance?
Oh, that's really disruptive. Oh, sorry, man. Oh, you know what? I'll just I'm Dave, and I'll talk about it later afterwards. Then how about that?
Yeah, just you can just hear that TV, so it's a little.
That's all good. I'm so sorry about that. All good.
No, that's all right. I'll come back to you, David. Faye, would you like to do an introduction, where you're from possibly, and an out-of-body experience you'd like to share, or a question with the group?
Sure. I am from the east side, near DC. I have been trying to have an out-of-body experience. In high school, like 8 years ago, I had an out-of-body experience and I was scared. And now I'm in, and I stopped, and since I had someone transition lately, I wanted to explore more. So I have been practicing. I had like a few OBE where I went to my ceiling and back, some vibration, but not like a astral projection.
Okay, well, that's great. And you come to the right place to learn. We give a lot of good advice here, and have a lot of different experience levels here. So I hope you pick up something that will help you on your journey.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Christy, welcome back, Christy. Would you like to do an introduction?
Hi, everyone. Well, I joined the last call, but I'm still new to the astral projection, and I still can't get past the vibration stage yet. So I'm trying to learn new techniques and how to quiet my mind and to stop focusing on my physical sensations at the time of vibration, and trying to see what's going to help me, kind of cross that line of focusing on my physical and focusing instead on leaving my physical body.
Right. Well, you're doing the right thing, I think, on trying to get past that, educating yourself, and keep pushing through it.
Yeah.
And the determination.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us again, Christy.
Sure. Thank you.
Hi, Susan.
Hi. I'm leaving my camera off today.
No, Susan.
Cleaning a dog and washing dog beds and just, yeah, I'm just a mess. I just finished supper. I'm here.
Oh, thanks, Susan.
Yeah.
All right, David, we're back to you. You ready?
I'll wait for a moment to share the screen because I still got the TV running in the background. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, but welcome to all the newcomers, and I'm always glad to come back.
Thanks. All right, I'm going to pull up chapter 16 here. Chapter 16 of Far Journeys, called The Gathering. So what I'm going to do is I have some notes here that I took on the book, and I'm just going to ramble off on some of the notes that I took. And at any time you can, if you can, go to reactions and put a hand up, and I'll call on you as soon as I see your hand up. And you can either respond to what I'm talking about or bring up anything you want on that chapter. And that's what I'm going to do right now. So as we get into chapter 16, for Monroe, after all of these rotes that were thrown at him, and that's packets of information on Loosh and about why humans are here. So as we get in here, Monroe is kind of all, as far as I could tell, he's kind of all full of emotions, which is the second thing that the Inspecs talk about, is emotions that humans experience. And so as months pass, basically the months pass very fast for Monroe after the last chapter. And without any unusual OBE activity, Monroe has grown away from the desire to investigate the local events that used to attract him so deeply. So he's kind of pushed himself away from out-of-body experiences again. And sometimes he would wake up out of habit just because he's been practicing so much, and he would detach from the physical body and wait for a strong ident inspect signal, but nothing ever came. So he would fall back to sleep. That's how his routine came, chapter 16 here. So just to show you that, nobody's having out-of-body experiences every day. I think sometimes we put a lot of pressure on ourselves that we should be having them all the time, or people that are really good at having out-of-body experiences, they don't have them all the time every single day. So it takes a little pressure off you to know that. Definitely me. So Monroe eventually gets a signal from his inspec friends during an afternoon nap and goes to them. And for those that don't know who Inspecs are, they're basically abbreviation for intelligent beings that he meets up with. And he has a name for them called Inspecs for short. So the Inspecs believe that Monroe is ready for his next step. Monroe is wondering if they're talking about him not going back to his physical body. But they're not talking about that. So Monroe has this feeling that that's it. He's not going back to his physical body. They're going to have him come out permanently out of his body. But that wasn't the case. The Inspecs do tell Monroe that he will know the day that comes which he will not go back to his physical body. So that was pretty interesting to know that he would know actually when he was going to leave his physical body behind. Die. It kind of reminded me of the Buddha story too, as Buddha knew when he was going to die. So Monroe remembers a time during an out-of-body experience that he had where he actually had a choice whether he wanted to go back to his physical body or not. So that was pretty cool to know that one time he actually had a choice where somebody said to him that he could stay out permanently, but of course he decided to go back. So the Inspecs take Monroe between Earth and the moon. They take him on a little ride. So he's between the Earth and the moon. And Monroe sees thousands of spaceships. So just imagine seeing that while you're between the Earth and moon. You see all these spaceships. And this is while he's out of his body during an out-of-body experience. So the Inspecs mention that they are watching the Earth and the humans here. So they're actually watching what we're doing here, as we already know. So with the Earth in the center, Monroe sees in all directions a host of forms. Countless numbers he sees. Some have shape and some were vapor. And they were waiting for a show to start. The Inspecs said that about every 87 million years on Earth here, there is a rare event that happens which may alter time, space, and all adjoining energy systems. So guess what? That's happening right near Earth. The possibility and a birth of a new energy form will start when this happens. It will offer human consciousness a rare potential to emerge rapidly into a unified intelligence energy system that will range far beyond time-space illusion, creating, constructing, teaching, as only a human-trained graduate energy is able to do. Wow, that's amazing. I'm just going to stop here for a minute. Would anybody like to comment on any of this? Susan?
I think we're right in the big middle of what he was talking about too. This shift that we're experiencing, this energetic shift. I don't think that it's going to be like one big sudden thing where you can say, this moment there is no shift, and this moment the shift has already occurred. I think that we're experiencing it over a period of time, but I think that's exactly what they were talking about. That we're just, we're evolving, and we're actually our vibrational frequency is becoming higher and higher for many people. So I think that that's what they were talking about. Even back when that book was written, I think that they knew that this was coming, and it's what we're kind of going through, and we have just left Kali Yuga, and we're kind of on the cusp. We're moving into Sat Yuga now, Satya Yuga, which is supposed to be the era of peace and a more matriarchal thing. So I think that they knew that. I think that that's what they were talking to him about, don't you?
Yeah, I get that too. It's amazing,
Yeah.
Now we're here. Anybody else would like to comment on this or what Susan said? All right, I'm going to continue on here the notes. So now this opportunity that's coming up here every 87 million years here on Earth, where all these different forms are coming, around the Earth area to witness this happening. If this opportunity is missed, humans will retreat as the dominant species on Earth until they no longer survive as an active consciousness, eventually in any form. Wow. That was in my notes there. I put wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're no longer, up there. So if that happens, the Inspecs would have to start up some action on some other planet in time-space with new humans. So I guess the Inspecs, the intelligent species, move on somewhere else, and they start up something new here and watching us as watching the new humans take over some other area of the galaxy universe. So now, after all this, Monroe's hanging out here between the moon and Earth. The Inspecs want Monroe to go get BB and to bring him back. So for those who don't know who BB is from KT95. It's a part somewhere out in the universe. It's another area. And this is also another form that Monroe meets up with when he's out of body. So the Inspecs want Monroe to go grab BB, and he's mentioned a lot in the book, and also AA, his friend. They actually came here to Earth on a cruise. So they came here on like a cruise to explore Earth and what humans are doing here. And they left the cruise and they stayed here. And his friend AA actually incarnated into a human being because he loved it here so much on the cruise. He's like, dude, I want to experience that, being human. So now he's lost here as a human, and he's being reincarnated through different life cycles. He's basically got sucked in here, and he's enjoying his different lives that he's doing, which he had to go through the entry point here to get in to do that. All right, so the Inspecs want him to go get BB, and after that, BB meets the Inspecs. So Monroe goes out, he goes and grabs BB, and brings him back in the Inspecs, and they meet. So you can read a little bit of that in the book there when they do a little conversation with each other, different life forms meeting each other in different forms. So now the Inspecs want BB to go and get his friend AA out of his physical body, because AA is living on Earth now as a man. So AA has been going through many lives here as a female, as a male, and right now he's a male. And he wants to go have him pull him out of his body. The Inspecs tell BB to tell AA that he needs to finish his designated function. And this is where it starts to get a little confusing for me. The Inspecs say after that it's done. The pattern is complete. So BB pulls AA out of his body, explains this to him, what the Inspecs are doing, and tells AA to finish his designated function. And then that's it. And the Inspecs say, it's done. The pattern is complete. The Inspecs' brightly glowing form, and that's how Monroe sees them. He sees the Inspecs as a brightly glowing form, winked out. And Monroe knew that they would no longer be, there would no longer be an Inspect ident to follow. And the ident is something that you connect to somebody when you're out of body. Some type of special identification that you can pull to somebody. But after he saw the Inspecs disappear, he didn't feel lonely. BB then takes off to the entry station into the Earth. And then I put in question mark here, is he going to be human? I was wondering if he's going to be human. And what did the Inspecs do? What was their main purpose here that they were finished with? So, would anybody like to comment on that? I'm a little confused on it. Kind of get it, but still it feels like some pieces are missing to the puzzle. Susan?
It's a little confusing for me too, but I think that's kind of to be expected because I didn't experience it, you know, what he experienced. So we have to hear what he's saying and follow along with it. It was interesting to me that the Inspecs were withdrawing. Were they moving away from the planet after they after this, they got this one guy out of his body and he was through with his cycle or whatever he had chosen to do here? Was it that they were calling him back and that they were moving away from Earth? I couldn't remember exactly how that went.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if that show ever happened too, that they were talking about. That happens every 87 million years.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's something that we still have coming up for us. Still something coming up that we haven't quite seen yet. I know when I was very young, when I was about 5 years old, I don't really know how to explain how this happened. I was in my bed when I was 5. It was during the night, and I think I must have seen something on television that frightened me. Or heard some news or something that frightened me because I was just, you know, as a child, you get scared by things on the news. And I remember lying in bed that night and just thinking to whoever was around me, you know, because I always felt people around me, beings around me. And I remember thinking, is there going to be a war? That was like the earliest thing I can remember asking my parents, will there be another war? I don't want to live through another war. I was the strangest little kid. I don't want to live through another war. I don't want to live through another war. So that I think this was on my mind. And I asked them about, you know, is something bad going to happen here? And they said something big would someday happen here on the planet. And that it might be necessary for some of us to leave the planet for a little while. And I said, well, how does that happen? I mean, will we be okay? And they said, yes. And I said, how? And they said, we'll take you. We'll come and get you. You won't have to be there if you don't want to be there. You know, but it may not be, you know, they weren't even sure themselves exactly how it was going to go down. They just said, you know, it's just an event. It's something that would happen, may happen one day. And I said, well, what about my parents? What about my brothers? What about my friends? You know, I kept getting them to promise that they would take them, take all these people. And I thought, you know, maybe back then, you know, way back then, they were still, you know, we were all being told in dreams and things, you know, that you know, could get rough, and it's been rocky. I mean, look what we've been living here for years. It's been very rocky. Everywhere in the world seems to be in some sort of upheaval right now. Maybe we're, you know, I think that we're in. I think with once again, I think we're kind of in the middle of this, and I wonder if there's going to be like an event that we can positively say, this is it. Here's the event. Here's what we're you know, we've been talking about all this time. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Susan. And then they mentioned that if the event doesn't happen, we're basically just going to phase out here and just be gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, I had this experience years ago. My youngest son had moved back from California and was living here for a year until he moved on to Austin. He was here, and he has out of body experiences also. And he was here, and he didn't tell me about this when it happened. He had an out of body experience, and we live out in the country. And we have a big, like 5 acres, you know, we're out near next to a ranch. And he'd gone out of body, and I noticed that he was kind of stressed and acting peculiar for a little bit. And I asked him about it later. He wouldn't tell me for several months. He wouldn't tell me what he had seen. And he finally told me, he said, you know, I want to tell you what I saw that day because I want you to try to go out and see if you see the same thing, because it scared me. And I wondered I asked him what it was. And he said there were, on the property, he saw these, it looked like large black balloons floating over the property. And he said they're all different sizes, and they're all tied to the ground. They have a tether that tethers, that's anchored in the ground. And he said, I don't know what those were, but he said, I didn't know if they were bombs or if they were like some kind of big black balloon things. He said it was frightening. And he said, I thought it meant something bad because they were black. And so he asked me if I would go and try to see what they were. So I did. You know, a couple of weeks later, I got out of body and I went out into the yard to see what they were and see if they were there. And they were there. They were actually in our yard for over 6 months. I saw them on multiple occasions. And then one day they were gone. They were all over this property, only this property. They weren't on anyone else's property around here that we have a neighbor 5 acres over. I could see, you know, they weren't anywhere but in this yard. And there were so many of them. And there were large ones. And there were some that were the size, maybe the size of a basketball, up to about 4 feet in diameter, 5 feet in diameter. And they were all tethered to the ground. And as I got up close to them, they had these little pegs on the outside of them. I don't even know what those were, but they reminded me of some kind of little depth charges, you know, that they used to, so I could see how he thought they were scary, and maybe this was a scary event that was about to happen. But I'm really curious when I get out, if there's something that I don't understand. I really want to understand it. I want to get as much information about it as I can. And this was so unusual that I went up very close to one, and I looked all around it. I felt around the outside. I could feel the little peg thingies on the outside. I felt all the way around, and actually was an opening. There's a tiny, tiny aperture in each one of them. They had an opening, and I couldn't, you know, I was like, okay, I'm protected. I feel, you know, I'm okay here. It's okay to do this. This is how I'm very mechanical and practical out of body too. And so I shrunk myself down to just this tiny little point of light that I travel as often, you know, because it's just convenient, so that I could get through this little aperture. And I thought, as I got up to the aperture, I extended an arm out and I grabbed the cord that attached me to my physical body, and I wrapped that cord around and around one of the biggest pegs so that I wouldn't get lost. If I went inside, I would always have that cord would be anchored to the outside of this thing, whatever it was. And I went inside, and inside it was space, but it wasn't this space. There was nothing that I recognized about it. There were stars, there were planets, but it was nothing like anything I recognized here. It was not this part of the universe. And I was flying along, and it was very beautiful, and it was quiet, and I didn't encounter anyone. I was just sailing along, and I realized that, I could really get lost in here. I mean, this is a place where you could go and not come back, you know, and be in a completely different part of the universe. And it startled me. And I was glad that I had tied myself off. And so I went back through it and unwrapped and went and I looked at some more. I didn't go in any others. I just went in that one. And I talked to my son. I said, yes, I saw them. They are in the yard. I don't think they're anything bad. You can go inside of them. It is like another part of it. It's almost like they're a portal or something. I really wasn't sure. I had no bad feeling at all about it. That was the main thing he was worried about. And he was worried that something was about to happen. You know, something was going to happen and all these were there for a reason. And I said, I don't really know. And about that time, I went to a lecture that David Wilcock was giving. I don't know if you know who that is, but he, and I wanted to talk to him about it. I didn't know if he would know anything about it or not, but it was this 2.5-day lecture and it was just so hectic and stuff. I sat by his mom in the back and I talked to his mom a lot. And I told the story to his mom and she talked to him later about it and told him about it. And he said, those are portals. He said, I'm just positive those were portals. And I wondered, is this, you know, what, maybe this is a place that we something that we can escape to while if there's something going on the surface and some things are being rearranged and stuff, maybe we just, maybe these are put there so that we have a place to go and wait and then we pop back in here. I don't know, but I thought that those were significant. They were here for 6 months. It was over 10 years ago, probably around 12 years ago, I think, that we saw those. They were here for about 6 months and then they were gone. But they're inside them, you could look inside of them and just saw stars and planets, and it was awesome. It was scary to look at them though. But I think, you know, perhaps something, you know, we're giving these things, and maybe something like that is something that we can use when the time comes. Maybe it's something that we'll need. I don't know. And maybe we can travel far distances in something like that. I'm not sure.
Susan, it reminds me a little bit when Monroe talks about going to the year 3000 and he has the energy resonant balloons around all the bodies.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, so basically all the bodies have this balloon around them and they're tethered to the ground. They're either tethered or they're just left anywhere, and there's no structures left. People just leave them all over the place.
Wow. Oh, I'd forgotten all about that.
So that's interesting. I wonder if somehow some type of relation between the two.
That's possible. That's very possible. Like I said, these were all different sizes.
Yeah.
And I went in one of the larger ones. I even went, after this was over, I came in, I got back into my body and I said, okay, I know exactly where the one was that I was in. And it was, you know, about 10 feet from the bathroom by my bedroom out in the yard. And I took a compass and I took an EMF meter because I used to do a lot of walkthroughs of houses that had occupation and things, you know, people wanted me to walk through and check their houses out. So I had all these instruments and I walked into the yard with a couple of them. And the compass, when I got to the place where the one I went into was, the compass just spun. It just went around and around and around. It never settled, never settled. And the EMF meter was higher than it should have been for out there. It was reading a little spike out there in that area. So there was something definitely energetic about it. I don't really know to this day. I mean, I knew it was some sort of portal because if I could get inside of it and travel in it, it was some sort of a portal. But that's the most information I was able to get out of it. And then they were gone. So, you know, within 6 months, they were gone. I've never seen them again. But it's kind of cool when you can validate something that somebody else sees that's there, and it's on an astral or an etheric level. It's there. You can't see them, but you know, I could go out there and I can measure that one. I could measure it on some level. That was interesting to me.
Thanks, Susan.
Yeah.
Well, towards the end of the chapter 16 here, Monroe says the Inspecs throw a rote, which is a packet information, at Monroe, and after the rote was tossed at him, He says he knows about individuation. So does anybody know about individuation? Carl Jung talks about it, I guess. I did some research, a little research on it. The individuation process. Is anybody familiar with that? Because Monroe's kind of confident at the end when he talks about that. A little confusing to me. So I was just wondering if anybody on knows about it.
I was a little confused by it too.
There's a whole philosophy on it about how we break away and become our own selves and stuff like that. But, yeah. Well, that brings us to the end of chapter 16, the notes I have. Would anybody like to add anything for chapter 16 or anything that I talked about or Susan talked about? And basically, that's the last chapter of Far Journeys. And now we get into the epilogue. And when we get into here, we get into big time talking about the rings and stuff like that. That Monroe talks about the different ring levels that we go to, or people are stuck at, or where they're at after they die, or where they're at when they're trying to become human. So that's what we're heading into now, called the end game. And I'm just going to do the same thing. Just read off some notes that I have here. Feel free to put your hand up at any time if you would like to respond to what I'm saying or bring up your own question or parts that you possibly took out of the book. All right, so Monroe hopes people will investigate the material that he wrote about. And it looks like we're doing that. So we're one of his groups in the future doing that right now. And if this information just helps one individual achieve a profound understanding of who or what they are, the purpose has been served. So if all the stuff that we're talking about helps somebody out there, then he's happy. And I'm sure it has. So when, let's see here, running a rote is much like trying to recall the memory of an event out of the past. So when Monroe's writing about all this stuff, I've wondered myself, how the heck does he remember all this stuff when he's out of body? And basically, you got to get to a spot where where it's quiet and kind of get into a meditative state of mind to recall all this information that he's pulling up. And a lot of these rotes, these packets of information that were tossed at him, he's got to basically just write this stuff down and remember as much as he can when he's back in his physical body in a nice, comfortable, meditative state area. And then Monroe starts to get into cruising the rings while out of body. All the different rings that are out there. And then I have a question. Does anybody want to talk about any of the different layers of rings? So here's some of the notes I took on some of the rings here. I'll pull up a diagram here too soon. One layer of the rings called the locked-ins are people who are permanently exited their physical body but don't know it yet. Some continue to attempt to re-enter into their dead physical bodies to reactivate them. And they even do this into the grave, which may have some strange radiation effects sometimes proceed when you're in a cemetery. So, has anybody ever been in a cemetery and possibly had any strange feelings or anything like that? And Monroe's saying possibly because somebody who died recently is trying to get back into their body. Susan?
I've never encountered anyone trying to get back into their physical body, My problem with them, because I've worked with so many people who were either in the process of dying or had just passed away, or some people that had been dead for 150 years. It didn't matter. My biggest problem was just convincing them that they had died. I never saw anyone myself try to get back in their physical body, but there were many times when I had to take them astrally to where their physical body was and let them see that it was not functional. It was, in one guy's case, he had been in some kind of an auto accident, and it was so destroyed that his arm had been amputated in the accident. He was really torn up, and I had to take him to because he refused. He refused to leave. He refused to believe that he was dead because he was conscious, he was intact. He refused to believe that he was dead. And I did take him to where his body was, because this was immediately after the accident. And I had to take him back to look at the body and see it. And even when he saw it, he had no plans of getting back into it. He told me that it wasn't him, that was not his body. It didn't look anything like him. And I promised him, it is your body. And I was looking for something identifiable in the body. And I actually had to, because the body bag was already been placed in a body bag. It hadn't been zipped shut yet, so I was reaching down. I was trying to rearrange things so that it was more recognizable. And finally I saw the arm that had been placed in the bag, and I told him to go over. I said, look at the arm. Do you recognize it? And there was a wristwatch on the arm, and he recognized the wristwatch. And I think there was a tattoo that he recognized also. And when he saw those, it wasn't upsetting to him, and he also didn't want to get back into it. He had no plans to get back into his body. He was actually delighted to be out of it and be free of it. But he just looked at it and he went, huh, okay, okay, where do I go now? And at that time, his deceased brother showed up, and they just walked off together. They knew where they were going after that. But I've never seen anybody try to get back into their bodies. That if the body was really on its way out, really going to die or had died. I've never seen anybody try to get back into them. Most people are so delighted to be out of them when they understand what's happened. They're thrilled to be out of them and don't want to go back.
Right. Yeah, I remember Monroe too mentions in the book that how a shocker it must be to somebody who's actually watching their body being cremated.
Oh, yeah.
Which is another step on top of it.
Yeah.
Somebody who, is stuck in that frame of mind when they die, that they're so attached to their body and being in the physical. It's the more attached you are to it, the harder it is, he mentions. And next, he gets into the largest ring of all, which contains limitless number of sub-rings. And the residents here at these rings know they had passed through the physical death. The single outermost ring is composed solely of those who are preparing for their final inhuman experience. The last timers, or seniors, they are nearly white in radiation with occasional sparkling patterns around them. So these are the last timers. And he kind of mentions, he mentions a little bit of like a Jesus figure or a Buddha or Mohammed and stuff like that. People that are the last timers, and they try to do the best they can before it's their last time, before they leave here. Try to cause the biggest amount of dent here towards, enjoying your life and not being stressed out, not being too caught up. I'm going to pull up here a flow chart. And this shows a little bit about the different types of rings and when we come to Earth and how we come in and how we leave. The itinerary of human experience might be mapped something like this in a serial form. So as soon as you come to Earth here, you're on an inward flow downwards. And this is the entry, exit, intermediate area. And put my notes here. Then you have the NPR areas, which are non-physical reality. And then you have the HTSI area, which is a human time-space illusion. And you can see how these numbers change as the farther down you go. And then as you head upwards, how the numbers change here. So I'm just going to kind of slide down it. And if anybody wants to mention anything about this chart here, just go ahead. I don't totally understand it. I'm still absorbing all this information in here. So you can see here, first timer down, and this is the last graduate here on its way back out. You can see which way the arrows are pointing. Outermost ring here. Last timers are seniors. Final inhuman, full spectrum, major ring. And then we continue on downwards if you're coming in as a human for the first time. Here's where you get to the quarter, the outer quarter part of the ring. So you got first repeaters, and then inhuman physical, full spectrum, down. You can see the NPR and the HTSI change as on the left here. You can see how this information changes. Yeah, and as I scroll down, feel free to mention anything. You can see next to each other here as the person coming down and the person actually going up and how they crisscross each other. And we're going deeper now, deeper in to the fields, to the rings. And on the right side, we're going on your way out. So which ones of us are on our way in? Which ones of us are on our way out? You can ask yourself that question. And here we can get to where the human time-space illusion is at 100% now. That's how deep we are. And then we hit, looks like the turnaround point here in the bottom, when you're actually in human physical, first timer. Now we're all the way at the bottom. Now we're in physical human form. So would anybody like to comment on that diagram?
A little too complicated.
It's deep.
Yeah.
It's definitely deep. I mean, as you read the book, some of the information makes more sense. Like the first time, this is my second, or actually third time going through the book. So I understand a little bit more as I go through it, but it's still complicated. Susan?
I was just going to say, I think that's where we all want to be, is on that right side on the way out.
Yeah.
We're hoping we've been here for a while and we're on our way. We're graduating soon.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling that for anybody that's interested in this subject. I believe it. Yeah, I think we're on our way out.
Yeah.
And
so.
we become helpers, especially you, Susan. You're a big helper, so you must be close to the top, the outer ring area of going there possibly after this life to help out even more as you work your way out to that outer ring. Does anybody think they're still on their way in?
I mean, how can you tell?
Yeah, you'd have to just kind of take the information from the book and compare it to the diagram. And it could be a little complicated, or maybe something how you feel, possibly.
Yeah.
I'm definitely a baby soul. I've been told that by a number of ex significant others, that I'm definitely a baby soul.
So, David, you probably will reincarnate, you think, a few more times and have some more fun here?
I'm coming back. There's no doubt.
Okay.
I want to come back, actually.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to say what I do for a living, but you know what I do for a living, Juice. I've seen a lot of bad stuff out there, and our planet needs people to want to come. You know what I mean? People to be here to help maybe fix this world a bit. So, yeah, I'm definitely coming back. I'm back for another ride.
Yeah. I think I'm at a point, too. I say there's a good chance I'll be coming back, too. I don't feel like I'm not an old timer or last timer or senior or anything yet. But I feel like I'm on my way up. I'm working my way up. But yeah. Susan?
You know, I've talked to a few people who are very old souls who've been here many times, and they're on their way out. And but one of them in particular has told me, that he just couldn't stand the idea of coming back here again. This has been such a struggle for him to be here because he's just not geared to physical reality. It doesn't work for him. It's just, he's not, he has a lot of trouble here. And he said that he was going to refuse to come back. And I said, well, you can try that. You can try that. I've refused to go back sometimes when I was out of body, and I was always sent back. So I don't know if you can do that. And he said, I'm going to ask to be annihilated. I would rather have my energy, my essence, my identities taken from me, and just return to the source, let my energy go back to source, then come back here. And to me, it's heartbreaking to hear that somebody's had such a difficult time here when they're obviously such an advanced soul, but it's just been such a hard place for them to function. I understand
Yep.
it. I'm really hoping I'm not coming back again, but you never know. We don't know. We're not sure.
Yeah.
We come back and we do the best we can, but I think most of us, many of us are on our way out.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, sometimes I feel like this is my last time here because I can't deal with it anymore. Like, of all the stuff that goes on here, what we're doing to the planet and what we do to animals and stuff like that here, and what we do to each other. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Faye?
Yeah, so I mean, I have been told that like I only had like 4 lives, and 2 of them have been on Earth, and then 2 of them been other places. And I trust the source, but I definitely do not want to come out. Like I want to like do everything in my power to help out right now, but I don't want to come back on to Earth. Maybe some other place I'll be okay, but Earth, yeah.
Well, in the book, Monroe talks about some outer rings. So when you actually die, you leave your body. You can actually stay in these outer rings near Earth, and you can actually influence what's going on with humans through that outer ring. Most of the time, it's helping people cross over. And so many people are lost when they die, and they don't know what's going on, and they need a big amount of souls, let's say, to help these people come to terms with what's happening, or possibly talk to them a little bit before they reincarnate.
Okay. Is that kind of like guides, you would assume?
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, he uses guides as a term in the book. Exactly. Helpers, guides. Definitely.
That's interesting.
Hi, Marty.
Hey, I'm sorry I'm late. I didn't realize you were on. I checked a couple times today. I didn't see it. Ugh.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it was last minute.
so I hope I didn't miss too much. I'm sure I did. Anyway, nice to see you all.
Well, you can always watch it later. It's in your area where you're focused a lot, so you can check it out later.
Okay. Good.
So did you want to respond to something, Marty?
I didn't see anything. No, I just wanted to make sure you saw I was here.
Oh, okay. Well, feel free to chime in anytime you want.
Thank you. Glad to hear you saying something nice about what we do to animals. So many people don't think about that. So yay.
I don't want to get into veganism. That's a no. But yeah,
30-year vegan here, but
20 years. All right, let's see. All right, so I'm going to continue here in my notes into the epilogue. Okay, so Monroe says that the unit, the original you, my notes are off the page here, is attracted and drawn by human Earth energy field. The unit decided to make a close in-pass-by through the field to attain data and information and get sucked into the Earth. So I've seen Monroe talk about this. He's got YouTube videos on this that somebody put out where he'd have a talk with Monroe on Wednesday or something like that, it's called. And he talks about this as us as forms get close to Earth, we get sucked into the field here. And somehow this is part of the rings and how we get sucked into these rings here. So as you do a flyby through Earth here, we get sucked into this. Would anybody like to comment on that? Susan?
That's similar to what Edgar Casey said in some of his readings a long time ago, back in the early part of the 20th century, I think. He said that when the Earth was young and there were life forms here, but no, the souls hadn't come in as humans yet, and that life, those who were watching over the Earth or whatever would get close to it and become so caught up in its energy that they would want to experience a life form. So they would actually pop into a life form here, whether it was an animal or whatever it was. And after they would come and go because it was fun, and that they actually, after a time, got stuck and couldn't, it began the cycle. They said that was where the cycle of reincarnation or whatever on Earth started, where they first started inserting themselves into bodies, and they settled into human bodies eventually, and then they couldn't extricate themselves from the body, so they had this process that they had to go through to work themselves up and out of the body again and out of the Earth plane. So it reminded me of that.
What do you think, Susan, with your experience? Do you feel like, is he hitting on that, Monroe? What he's saying there?
Well, it reminded me of it. I'm not sure if he's saying the exact same thing. It just reminded me of that. Yeah.
Remind you of it.
Think of that. Yeah. So I'm not really sure, but I understand the thing about getting caught up, because I've read other people. I've read things where people have talked about the same thing, getting caught up, getting close to the Earth and getting caught up in the activity and the things that are going on, and watching the life forms go about their everyday thing, and running and playing and swimming and all of this stuff, and they liked it, and they, so I can see how it would be easy to get caught up in the frenzy of this world.
Right, how Monroe talks about his friend AA who gets caught up in it.
Yeah.
The whole story on that.
Yeah.
It's kind of strange how Monroe here, refers to the original us. I consider that the soul, let's just say. And then he refers to that part of you as the unit. So I never heard that before. He goes back to using the word the unit.
Is he referring to the body?
Well, it says that the unit, and then after that it says the original you, which is the unit.
Okay.
Yeah, is the one that actually gets sucked into Earth here.
Okay.
So the human life has many attractions. To some, it's attending a vast amusement park with different types of rides to try. So there's one that sucks us in. When we perceive a graduate, somebody who's graduating here at Earth, your only goal is to be one yourself once you realize it's possible. So when you say you pass a graduate here, let's say, I don't know, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, whatever, you want to be like that, and then you're working your way back up. The conditions of entering physical life as a human are relatively strict. He mentions that. Some forms get tired of waiting and will accept entry under the most marginal of circumstances. So as we talked about earlier, you might have to wait longer to get into New York to be a human than you would if you got into Calcutta or Bombay. So some people don't want to wait, and they just take whatever they can get. And who knows where they'll end up. So you can end up, maybe you could be a soul with somebody who's famous or rich, or you could be with somebody who's poor, but in the end, it's all an experience. All right, first-timers. Goes back into first-timers here. Trying to understand emotions, as it's virtually impossible to achieve and experience in a single physical human lifetime. The result, the need to re-enter and recycle. So you can see why people want to come back. You can't experience it all in one lifetime, especially if you die fast. You say you get hit by a car when you're 10 years old. You want to come back again, most likely. Because you're going to remember when you go back to the entry station again that, oh, you just got hit by a car, and then you get your memories back of where you came from. Do you want to give it another shot? Susan?
Yeah, it's, I was just thinking about that and that people that come here and want out of it, you're ready, you come in, you see how difficult it is when you get here. But the thing that I've always been told, and I've found this to be true, what I've seen, I believe it to be true, that any gain that you make here as a physical being by coming here, your advancement, the opportunity for advancement here is really great. So that any progress that you make here, it's such a difficult place. It's like we're in this, it's almost a remedial school, but any progress that you make is huge. And that if you stayed out of the physical realm, or if you decided not to be physical and you wanted to just stay in this etheric state, spiritual state, or whatever, and progress there, it would take you much longer. If you were talking about linear time, it would take you much longer, because that the realm of resistance is the physical realm. And it's like when you're building muscle, to build muscle, you need resistance. You need resistance exercise. And that's kind of what Earth plane is here. This physical realm is resistance exercises for our psyches, for our consciousness. And the gains are huge. It's not pleasant a lot of the times. I mean, a lot of us have some really difficult lives, but the gains that you make, if you make them, are huge, and they propel you very, very far along your path. If you're successful at doing what spiritually, what you came here to do.
Thanks, Susan. Marty?
Okay, I have a question for you guys who are experienced. Susan and Juice, I don't know about the rest of you. I've had like limited experience floating around my surroundings, but I had two where I was actually out in the atmosphere, flying around in the sky. And I don't know if there's a difference between this like close astral that we can go into and what you actually end up in the other life as he should have had a name for like excarnate or tween carnates or something. We're incarnate here. We're in the meat, so to speak, like chili con carne.
Right.
So, but anyway, I'm digressing. Anyway, so the two experiences I had where I was like really flying, the thing that really was so amazing to me was how much more physical it was than the physical, the intense physical sensation of like the air flying against my face, and the colors were so incredibly intense and vibrant and three dimension. It was like going from regular TV to 4K, HD, like it was like way past that. So what I'm wondering is, why do people want to come back to this incarnate thing that isn't as intense, unless that's just our close astral? I mean, you guys who've been beyond our close astral, or do you lose it then, when you get beyond that? Or like, can you tell me, Susan and Juice, and I don't know, Tommy, would be you other guys, so anyway, that's my question.
I'm just going to say we're never happy, I guess, just sitting around doing nothing. We always want to experience stuff. So even if we're in a soul form with a lot of experience, we want to experience something else. I see it like that. We're never content where we are. We always want to keep going. But Susan?
But why don't you want to come back is my question,
Oh, because I guess it's because of more physical here. Because
well, see, that's my question. When I got out, my two times I was really out there, it was more physical than the physical. Do you lose that when you go on?
I'm thinking that you'll eventually lose that because
Uh,
you have a physical body somewhere. So that's nice and fresh in you that, it's very exciting because first of all, you lost your consciousness. I mean, you lost your information of where you came from. So now you're in human form, and now you're in this other form. And sometimes you lose where you came from with your physical, and sometimes you don't lose, and you know where you came from when you're lucid. So those are pretty extreme transitions that are exciting, I think, to me. And to come back here and just experience whatever, being a female, being a male. Yeah, you could do that. You could be a female and a male, I'll say, outside your body. But I guess because of the way the physical system is set up here, it might be more exciting and you can learn more from it, especially since your mind is wiped out from not remembering where you came from and that you can manifest anything that you want to. Here, you can't, possibly, but you can if you remember that you can manifest anything you want. So, Susan?
No, I agree. People come back here, I think, for a lot of reasons, and a lot of what Juice just said. Women, sometimes people want to come back and experience childbirth. If they haven't experienced childbirth and raising a child, a physical human child, giving birth to it and raising it, experience motherhood, or experience the physicality of sexual experience, or there's so many reasons that you could choose to come back here. I would think that people choosing really mundane experiences and I want to come here, I want to live a life of luxury, whatever. I would see that more as first timers or people that had just were early on in the human experience. But my experience with people that have been here many times, they don't want to be here. They're glad to be here to help, but they're glad to know that they won't be here a lot longer. And I just for myself, I remember when I was very young, and I was probably 4 or 5 years old. I remember even at that young age that I was very goal-oriented, but it wasn't, there were all kinds of things I wanted to be in life, but mainly I had this notion that there was something that I came here to do. And I don't know how a 5-year-old child knows that. I don't know. But when I would lie in bed at night, I would think about that, and I would just offer myself, whatever I came here to do, help me get it done, and help me be good at it, and use me to help other people to because I know I came here to help in some way. But at 5 years old, you don't know why. But I chose. I'm aware that I chose to come back here. I am aware of that. But yeah, I think that people just have all kinds of different reasons for coming back here, and it's kind of it just pulls you back. It just pulls you back in until you're ready to be free of it. And what you were saying about feeling more physical when you're out of body, I think that what I feel out of body is not necessarily more physical, but much more conscious, just much more conscious of everything, the physicality of the objects around me, and my relationship to them as being without a body, is so wonderful to me that I devoted a huge amount of time to astral projection in my life. I really have, because for that very reason, it felt wonderful to be out of my physical body. And there's a clarity there. When Monroe talks about the roads and the things that you have to remember to get back to a certain person or a certain situation or whatever. That wasn't my word for them, but I know what he means. And those things those, you become, even if you don't remember them when you're back in your body, when you're out of body, in my experience, I don't know, Juice, if you've experienced this too, but I become so much more clear-headed, and I can recall anything, any place I've ever been. It's like I don't really need, if I've been there, I can get there again. If it's a person, I have my own way of programming that in to get there. But there's this extreme clarity that is very, very attractive to me, and gave me a reason to want to be out of body as much as I could and learn as much as I could that way.
Thanks, Susan. I'm going to add here my notes next. Robert Monroe says, human physical life is addicted. So in what cases that is, you would have to weigh the two together, being out of your body, being fun, but also being physical and being fun. Yeah. And there's I guess, different type of addictions. And he gets into emotion again, which is the second thing that humans experience. The first was survival. He talked about in previous chapters that when he was trying to describe what humans are about, the first thing he says is survival, and the second is emotions, dealing with emotions. And is the key to and driving force underlying every thought and action in human existence. Marty, I was going to say, did you want to add anything to what we said?
Well, yeah, everything that you guys have been saying has just sort of been making my point more, that like, why would you want to be limited by the physical when you can have more intense physical sensations outside of the body, unless, again, because I've only been this, pretty close dimension wise. So when you get past the close dimension, then you lose it. Or, I mean, a lot of people, even Robert Monroe has been saying there's even more intense like sex outside of the physical. So you don't need to come back to the physical for that either, evidently. So I don't know, unless eating isn't as good. I mean, we like to eat a lot here on the physical.
Yeah.
I
right.
don't know.
I mean, if you're here on Earth and then you start eating when you're out of body, you might know that there's not a body that's interpreting the chemicals. So you kind of got to do it yourself, like just by knowing that there should be, like, you're eating something and you know that there should be a taste for it just because you're out of your body, but there's not really a taste. But then when you're a human, you know that your body's doing that and there's a taste. It might take some of the pressure off of, like, faking it in certain ways. I don't know.
So back so we can eat.
Yeah, the different illusions of eating. Yeah. Like the physical illusion of eating might be better than your astral illusion of eating out of body.
Yeah. I don't know. You guys would know that. Have you eaten in the other dimensions? Susan and Juice? Or anybody?
I have.
I've been around food. It's been there for me, but I've never actually eaten astrally. I've gone to visit relatives who have passed, and that was one of my questions for them. Do you all eat? What do you do here? And on one visit, everybody was gathered, and there were some nice tables out on a lawn. It was beautiful. There was fruit. There were all kinds of things there to eat. And I asked one of my aunts, I said, do you eat this? And she said, if I want to. I don't have to, but if I want to, yeah, I can eat it. And so I thought, oh, that's interesting. But another thing that I was going to say, one of the good examples of why people that come back here are artists. Artists and artisans come back here because this is what some of them have explained to me, that people that I know who are artists in this lifetime, and I've had some really good friends who are accomplished artists, and they talk about the attractiveness of actually working with raw materials, physical materials here, as opposed to in a spiritual world. In a spiritual realm, you can still create artistically, but it's more challenging here. It's more challenging you're working with more with raw materials. You may grind your own paints, for example. You may do this, you may do that. But there's something very attractive to artistic people about working from scratch, so to speak, you know, really getting down to the nitty gritty and working artistically in a physical world. I wouldn't like it. I mean, you know, for myself, I'm kind of tired of the world. I'm a little bit world weary, but I'm glad that I'm here. But I understand that was enlightening to me to talk to some of them, you know, to understand what they were saying, because they said they had no doubt that they were also artistic in the spiritual realms, but that there was just something about getting your hands dirty, getting in there and, you know, getting paint on your clothes and getting glue on your fingers and doing, you know, just the nitty gritty physicality of creating a work of art or a wood carving or whatever that you do working with your hands is really attractive to some beings, some souls, especially artistic ones.
Thanks, Susan. Dave?
Oh yeah, it was just the thing about the food thing. I think about three weeks ago when I had one of those full conscious dreams. There was these beings. I went over it like weeks ago, but there was these beings, and they gave me some food, and they said you needed to eat this so that you can stay over there longer. And it was something in the, I don't know if it was in the book that we talked about it as well to cover a topic, but yeah. And I ate the food and I felt stronger over there, and things seemed a little bit more concretized. So
Let's see here. Thanks, David. Far the largest accumulated heavy load is the emotional mass loosely held as a human ego. So Monroe starts to get into the ego. He gets into that for a while. And consciousness is focused energy. Sexual attraction and attractiveness are elements of a survival drive, which is purely physical and no more. Good, evil, right, wrong exist only as an illusion. Physical things, places are to be enjoyed and to learn. None is ours. We don't own or possess anything or person. Nothing belongs to us. Even the matter we use for our physical body is borrowed. Store the memory and the experience. Leave the emotion behind. I mean, he's getting into some pretty deep stuff here about life. I know I've heard a lot of this stuff through like the Buddha and Jesus and other figures, the Dalai Lama. At physical birth, we are bound not only by our previous experience, wherever it may be, but by the genetic structure of the physical body we inhabit. Then he gets into trying to escape out of human earth energy rings and stuff like that, building an escape velocity energy, and how to finally get out and graduate. The detoxification, load, reduction, purging process, adulthood, maturity, and wisdom. You are ultimately your own instructor, and you will fill out your own report card. And then towards the end of the epilogue here, Monroe says, see you in home or along the way. And that's my final notes. So would anybody like to respond? Questions? Anything on the epilogue here? David?
I'll bring my hand down because it's not on the epilogue.
Oh, okay. I'll go to you first if nobody else comes up here.
Okay.
All right. Oh, yeah, Marty.
You know, I was looking for Astral City, and it's not on Netflix in case anybody wants to know. But while I was looking there was a movie called Discovery. I don't know if anyone's heard of that, which stars Robert Redford, very old Robert Redford, who plays a sort of Frankenstein-like scientist who discovered proof of the afterlife, that consciousness goes on beyond physical death. And when he brought this discovery forth, then people started killing themselves en masse because he had said there's this like wonderful place to go. So there was a screen everywhere you go. There'd be like a television screen that would say like how many more people killed themselves, and there were like 4 or 5 million had done it. Every day there were more and more. And anyway, I thought that kind of sort of plays into this whole thing, that if there's this wonderful life, then why bother, sticking around here where you have a lot of pushback. So anyway.
So maybe, Marty, you got a taste of it. Like, say we come here on Earth, but we're not really supposed to leave our bodies for, let's just say, for some reason, like you're locked in here. But if you want to try to practice to leave your body, you can get out and get a little taste of where you came from. So maybe you didn't know what you were getting yourself into here.
Well, I didn't really know, but I was hoping, and I'm glad.
Yeah. So you are, yeah, you're happy.
Oh
But
yeah.
now, yeah, because Monroe says that maybe a person might experience an out-of-body experience their entire life, maybe one. There's a certain percentage that he said that experience it, but just one your entire life. So, not remembering when you actually do leave here, you'd be like, okay, I had my fun there. I don't need to pretend anymore in the physical world anymore. Of why do people want to come back here? So, but then I guess once you leave Earth and then you decide that, hey, why would I want to come back there? Would you think of that too? Like, why would somebody want to come back here again?
Well, that was the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, why somebody would. They must be either, there's two things here. Monroe says you can't leave. You're actually stuck here until you get a velocity, a speed to get yourself out of here. So you're stuck. You got to stay here somewhere in the ring somewhere.
Ooh.
Or yeah. Yeah.
Hey, question for you, Juice. You mentioned some time back a spinning thing. And my first spontaneous out of body, which was when I was like 13 years old, and I'd had successive episodes of sleep paralysis, which at the time were very terrifying because I knew none of what we speak. And so to me, it was that there was a group of entities that was trying to take my life. But I felt like I was like a ball spinning around on a string, with centrifugal force, like this.
Right.
And that at this one point on the circle, there were these entities that were trying to like cut the string, and then I was going to fly off on a tangent, and that would be the end of my life or whatever. And then after, this had happened numerous times, so there was this extreme terror with that. And then one day the entities did manage to cut the string, and off I went. And then I experienced seeing myself like sit up and float across the ceiling, which is something I don't normally hear people say. I mean, people talk about turning around and seeing their physical body, but they don't often talk about seeing their astral body fly off, which I did,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
picked up speed. And when I was coming to the wall, I thought I was going to hit the wall. And when I came to the wall, it was gone. And then I had no more memory after that. But you had mentioned that spinning around thing, and I hadn't heard other people talk about that. Is that a common thing? That feeling that you're spinning on the end of a string?
Well, I was going to say real quick that Monroe, he talks about going out of a second body in the book.
Yes.
So he does get in a little bit into that. So kind of seeing a second body there. And then with the spinning around and seeing that happen, I haven't heard it too much. People talk about it myself. So I haven't heard people talk about it. Even the second body that Monroe talks about, I don't hear many people talk about that either. Going out of one body, your physical, and then going out of that body again. Yeah.
Has anybody else had that spinning? I know you said you did, Juice, but
Yeah, when I was spinning, I was halfway out of my body. I've had it sometimes when I get stuck and I can't get out. And it's usually after a lack of practice. Like when I don't practice that often and I start trying to get out, that'll happen. But it's just, I've heard a lot of people get stuck in their bodies trying to get out, different parts of it. But for that reason, I was just spinning, trying to get out. I was trying to spin out, and I was stuck in the middle of my body trying to get out of it. But I've definitely heard a lot of people Even Monroe talk about their legs get stuck, their arms get stuck, their upper part of the body gets stuck, their bottom part gets stuck. So, anyone else want to comment on that?
I haven't experienced the spinning part. I don't remember experiencing that myself. I don't think I have.
Okay, I'm gonna Dave, I'm gonna have you if you're there.
Yeah, I'm here. It's not for the spinning stuff though. It was something else. So I can wait.
Okay, I just let's say, Christy, did you want to respond to the spinning?
No, I had a different question.
Okay, I'm gonna let Dave go first, and then you'll be next.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
It should be really quick. So was last week. I think it was somebody named Monica talking about using rope to get out of their body, and I'm getting way better at entering my dreams at a conscious level by using the countdown technique. And so when I started doing the countdown technique and I entered my dreams fully awake, I used the rope thing, and I kept pulling on a rope in my head. And the next thing you know, I'm dreaming, I'm pulling on a rope, and all of a sudden, it pulled me out of my body physically, the physical body.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I don't know about the OBE thing. I'm not good at that yet, really. But what I'm really getting good at is going into my dreams while I'm awake.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not an OBE expert or even close to even amateur, but I can definitely walk into my dreams. And then I saw the rope, and I started pulling on the rope, and little bit by little bit, I started pulling myself out of the body. And I looked down and said, "You gotta be shitting me." Wait till I tell the gang this in a couple of days. That's why I had to try to get back on so I can. Anyway, that's all. Thank you.
David, are you lucid when you go in your dreams?
110%.
So give this a try. This is a pretty strong
Sure.
maneuver to get into an OBE from a dream, from a lucid dream. Once you're in your lucid dream, fall backwards.
Yeah.
Just fall backwards.
You guys talked about that, and
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna try that. I have you suggested that and the spinning thing, and we just shared that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Let me put that on. I'm getting better at manifesting these things that we are talking about. No OBE again for a second time, but at least I'm getting better at manifesting stuff. Thanks.
Yeah, that's great, David. Christy?
All right. So my original question was, does anybody know, or I came across a documentary on Friday night about, it was a short one about the pineal gland and how it plays a role with astral projection or astral travel. I have no idea what to think about that, so I just curious to see what you know about that, if you have heard anything, and then also that if there's, I guess, like a lot of toxins in our body that maybe that prevents us from, or not prevents us, but it makes it harder for us doing astral travel or having OBs.
Well, nobody has their hand up. I'm just going to respond to you real quick on that. Yeah, there are toxins that can, this is a research I've done. Everybody has their own views, but toxins that can block your pineal gland.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually started getting, one of them is fluoride and chlorine and stuff that's in the water.
Yeah.
So what I do is I go to a local spring here in New York where I'm at, and I actually get my own water. And I'm doing a research thing on that right now. I've actually did a video on it. And my dream recall has just been so much more amazing since I started drinking the natural spring water right from a tap. Actually, right in the woods. I get it. So that's one thing on possibly blocking your pineal gland. And your pineal gland supposedly is like your third eye. And
Yeah.
also you hear that it releases DMT. So when you sleep or when you die, this chemical is being released. And of course, a lot more when you're dead, but also when you're dreaming. And it's supposed to take you into the transition over into the out-of-body state or into that astral plane is the chemical that helps your soul do that. That's my understanding of it. And I will pass it to Marty.
I was just wondering, interesting about what you're saying there about the chemical thing. Well, I should give you a short little anecdote about that. My sister's husband just died, and the cat jumped up on his bed right after he died and walked up his body and sniffed him in the face. And she said the cat's hair stood straight up, and then the cat like moonwalked backwards and then jumped off the bed and ran away real fast. So the cat sniffed something. Anyway, I was just going to ask David if he could just review what his countdown technique is, because you must have said it at one point, but I don't remember. So if he wouldn't mind, thank you.
So I think it was from the book. So the one I use is to count down from after I've meditated for about an hour. I get up, move around a bit, and then I count down from 10 to 1, and then I start back up from 10 to 1, then start back up from 10 down to 1. And how it works is when I count, like I say 10, and then I'll breathe in and say and in my head, breathe out and count 9, and then breathe in and say and then that's how I do it. And oddly enough, by the time I've done it 3 times, I'm entering my dreams.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, David. Susan?
I was just making some notes here while people were talking. So Dave was talking about the rope trick, the rope thing. I call it the rope trick because I've used it in classes for about 15 years. But I started using it when I was a kid because it was an easy visualization to help pull out of body. Tie a knot in the rope, tie several knots in the rope, or imagine the knots in the rope. It makes it easier. If you're particularly like a physical person, you know, I'm very mechanical. I'm very, I'll do things out of body that are so human and so physical, like it's strange, but I want the knots in the rope because I don't need them, but I want them there. It makes me feel better knowing the knots are there. I'm not going to slip off the end. And I just hold on and whoosh, pulls me right out because the rope itself pulls up. I don't have to pull down on it. The rope pulls me out if I want to use that technique. So that was one thing. And also someone was asking about ways to become lucid in a dream. We were talking about that. Somebody has mentioned that. Another way that's real easy is if you just look at your hand in your dream. If you, there's several things that you can do. Looking at your hand is one thing. As soon as you look at your hand, you become lucid, and it'll probably stop your dream and leave you lucid, but in a dark place. And that's just a springboard to out of body. You can go straight out of body from there, or you can just wake up. You have a choice. But looking at your hand is a very easy one. And I also tell people in classes one thing is when you're dreaming, if you start asking yourself while you're awake during the day multiple times, stop and look at something and ask yourself, is this real or is this not real? Am I awake or am I dreaming right now? You know you're awake, but if you ask yourself that enough times during the daytime, you will ask yourself that while you're dreaming. And when you do that in your dream, it will stop the dream. So if you ask yourself, am I awake or am I asleep? This will start happening in your dream. That's how you stop a lucid dream. Another way you can stop it is to just say, this is a lucid dream. I want to stop the dream. And when you do that, everything goes black. And I'm perfectly conscious, lucid, and not awake, not asleep. I'm just right there lucid. I can go, it's a jumping off point. I can choose to go back into my body, wake up, and everything's just like it was, or I can go out of body from there. So that's another way to get lucid in a dream. There's things that you can do. And we said something about DMT. DMT is also produced in your lungs in large amounts, and that's why breathing exercises are so effective in consciousness, in altering consciousness. Because when you do the deep breathing exercises, you're actually producing more DMT, which is the spirit molecule, the God molecule, the God particle in us. So those are important. The deep breathing exercises are important. And there's all kinds of breathing exercises on YouTube. and things that you can do, just very simple, even just deep breathing in and out produces more DMT in your body. So that's a very good thing. Yeah, I recommend the breathing exercises for sure, but getting lucid, yeah, if you just, in fact, I even got to us, I tell people, I taught a class once, it was called Lucid Living. And it was just a play on words, but I told them that, you know, I do this in class. I teach people to question whether they're awake or asleep all the time in their waking life. Even if you're in a car, you go up to a red light and look at the red light and ask yourself, am I awake or am I asleep? Am I dreaming this or is this real? But you will start to ask yourself that when you're out of body. I actually had them start asking, am I alive or dead? Because I had a class where I talked about working with the dead. So many, I call them the dead, but working with the spirits of people who have died. And you have to ask them. I mean, it's good to ask them and ask yourself, am I alive or am I dead? When you ask someone that, first it upsets them, and then they start to, it's like they're in a lucid dream, then they become lucid by asking them that question. So, but yeah, am I alive? Am I awake or am I asleep right now? Am I dreaming or is this real life? But you start to ask yourself those things in your dream, and that's a real helpful thing. It's a real helpful. Carlos Castaneda was the one that said a long time ago in one of his first books, something, look at your hand in a dream and it will stop your dream cold, and it will. If you just say this, oh, this has got to be a dream. You know, the old thing like, oh, this is such a bad dream, I have to pinch myself. I've pinched myself so many times out of body to make sure that I wasn't physical. You can do that too. You can just, you know, oh, this has got to be a dream, and then pinch yourself. It'll make you lucid.
Great advice, Susan. Thank you. All right, everyone, it's past 8:30 a little bit here. So I just want to let everyone know that tomorrow is going to be part of the book Far Journeys called Questions and Answers on the Out-of-Body Experience. So this should be a good one for people who like questions and answers. So that's going to be tomorrow at the same time. And that's, if you want to read it, it's in the Far Journeys. There's a chapter called Questions and Answers at the end. So this is going to be, I think it's going to be a good one for a lot of people. It's going to be a lot of information coming up on that. All right, so I'm going to close it out for the night. Thanks everyone for coming and sharing, like always, and I'll see some of you hopefully tomorrow for the questions and answers.
Right on. Thanks again, Juice. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night.